रुद्र सिंह, कलिंगा इंस्टीट्यूट में फुटबॉल कोच हूँ मैं। फुटबॉल टीम बना रहा हूँ। मेरे साथ चलोगे?
Hi Rudra, I'm Roshni, your sports physio from the Junior World Rugby Nations Cup. Rajkishore can't play for the next 6 weeks.
रुद्र हमें उखाड़ के फेंक देंगे।
You can't watch over them 24/7.
When I first knew that Abhay was on board with Jungle Cry, it was an honor to first of all know that he was going to be beside me on screen. But as an actor, especially for this being my first biggest major feature film, I knew I was going to learn a lot from him, and I knew that if he was kind and he would teach me the ropes, that I would get a lot of momentum and fulfillment as an actress out of working with Abhay. And he was exactly that. Every day on set he would, even just with camera positioning and angling or just talking about the industry, he was so kind and generous and open and very vulnerable about his experience and his life in the industry. Abhay was always kind to me, and we never actually had any preparation for the film, so we never rehearsed any scenes, anything like that. So every single take that we did was very different than the other one. And so the director had a lot of juice to work with when he was putting together the film. And I think that was so special about Abhay and I, was that we had a chemistry that would just spark up right as soon as they called action. And we were able to perform as a director needed. I've learned a lot from Abhay, and I think he's been so generous and so supportive. Even when he was dubbing, he had sent me a quick text message and said, I've seen some of your work and you look brilliant on screen and you're going to go so far as an actress, which is, to hear that from a veteran actor like Abhay Deol, it means a lot to me. And he didn't have to send that text message, so it was very kind of him. And of course, with his support, maybe I'll move forward to, not maybe, I will move forward to a lead role. So we'll see.
It is a true story. It has happened before. It happened in 2007. I think a brave British man, Mr. Paul Walsh, came to India in the lookout of a few rugby players for his next team, which he wanted to send for a World Junior Rugby Championship. And I think he traveled all around the metro cities of India, and he was quite disappointed because he did not really find the right children, the right talent. And then he happened to find the right talent somewhere in the tribal villages of India. And he felt that these boys were fit to play rugby because they were from the terrain, they ran, they had bodies which were strong, they were dexterous. So that's where it all started. And then he went to this school called the Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, and he chose a team, and in 4 months he trained them, took them to the UK, and they won.
It sounds like almost like a fairy tale and quite incredible. When did you personally actually first hear this story?
So the irony is that not many in India know about it, because it's a very it's a quiet victory. Not many know about it. And I come from Bombay, which is the other part of India, which is the western part of India, and Bhubaneswar is on the eastern side. And when we heard about the story, we were like, wow, this really happened. And that's the time when Shabir and Prashant wanted to make a film on it, and I was like, wow, I'm so lucky I'm just getting a chance to make this drama.
This sporting genre, how popular is it in India?
More than the sports genre, I think I would call it the inspirational genre. I think people like to get inspired. People like to see success stories. People like to see the underdog winning. I think it all comes from there. And mainly sports films have been made, films like Chak De and Mary Com, and many films like Gold with Akshay Kumar, which released. So they have used sports because there is a new kind of an audience today which is wanting to see different kind of films. They love their masala films, they love their Bollywood films. Many filmmakers like me do not like the term Bollywood because we feel that we belong to the Hindi film industry. But well, we welcome the word Bollywood. So many people like the Bollywoodish kind of films, but they are looking for different stuff. And especially with the internet coming and taking over and so many OTT platforms, I think the mood of the viewers have changed, and they're ready to watch a good film.
Emily, you play a sports physiotherapist in this film, which is about a young rugby team really scaling the heights. Can you tell us a little bit about the film and your character, please?
Sure. Jungle Cry is about a group of tribal boys from India who have never left their tribal land, and they come all the way from India to the UK to play in a rugby world tournament. They've never heard of rugby. They were soccer players actually to begin with, and Paul Walsh, who's from the UK, came and actually coached them, and so they went to the UK, played in the World Cup, ended up winning the entire Junior World Rugby Cup. So great accomplishment for them, and my character specifically is their sports physio.
You come to play this part. Do you know the people behind it? Did they select you, or was it a traditional auditioning process?
Sure. So my dad is a producer, so yes, there's nepotism. We're just going to put that out there. Okay. But when I had my father told me, he said, you need to get a college degree, and I said, fair enough. Okay, you're Indian, whatever, I get it. It has to be done. About 6 months before I was graduating, I told him, I said, look, I can keep auditioning for other studios and other film productions, or I said, we can make our own content and we can work together and join forces. And he said, yeah, let's do it. I think that's a great idea. And so Jungle Cry came across our table, and with my dad especially over the years, he would read scripts, and half the time he would not read scripts. He would send it to me and say, you read it, you tell me what you like about the story. And then I would do that, because he just doesn't really have time, most of the time to do stuff like that. So when I read Jungle Cry and I read the story and I knew what it was about, I thought, I just know that this is a story that has to be told, and it would be unjust if we did not bring this story to light. But it was a male-driven story, and so that was a difficult part. So we didn't know how to incorporate me into the story, and so we thought of different components, but every sports team needs a sports physio, and for the most part they're female. So we thought, great, it just blends together well. And when we came up, I actually came up with Roshni's story, where she came from, her background, gave her all that juicy meat that made her who she is, and helped the writer actually write some of her dialogues.
When you first decided to do this film, did you have your cast in mind? How did you go about the casting process?
We had the story, we did not really have the cast in place, and we definitely knew that we had to make something very real. And I know Abhay since a few years, and he's a very sensitive, shy, but an intelligent guy. So when I offered him this film, he was quite excited, because he said that I've never even played rugby in my life, and I'm still preparing myself. He said that rugby is something, and he was just like majorly into yoga and sports, so he had chiseled his body. So he said that, yes, Agar, I do look like a coach, but rugby, I was like, it's a very inspiring story. I said that, look at what the story is trying to say. And then when he heard about the story, he heard about how the kids came through, he said, I definitely want to be a part of this film. And then he trained himself. We all trained ourselves. You
yourself needs to know what rugby looks like on the pitch.
We watched matches. I went to Wales, I watched some real matches. I started watching a lot of matches on television, picked up most of the books on rugby, did some online tutorials, and actually played the game too.
The relationship with the boys obviously is a very important part of the film. So how did you establish that?
Well, coming to the UK the Welsh community especially they made it so comforting and so welcoming, and especially Scarlet Stadium where we shot, they made us feel like we were family. And so coming into that environment was so easy, just because of how kind they were. And as for the boys, when I actually went to India before they came to the UK, because I wanted them to become acclimated to me, and they're not actors, they're actually rugby players. And so I knew that they would need a little bit of, guidance, and just, I didn't want them to feel shy in front of me, because they see a girl and they're from these tribal lands, and they just, so they shut down a bit. Right. So when I went to India, I did a bunch of different little games with them. Abhay and I interacted with them. I especially, after dinner, I would go and speak to them for, a couple hours, and they would laugh at my Hindi, because I have an American accent, whatever it is, what it is. And they would try to correct me on things, and I would tell them about life in America and Hollywood culture and stuff like that. So we bonded in that way. And so when they came to the UK, they just felt like it was just a familiar face they knew, and they were ready to shoot. So it was nice.
You've produced a lot of films, like My Name is Khan, and you've had a lot of you've 30 years in films. What made you want to make this film, Jungle Cry?
Well, it was very important for me to tell the next generation that we have. Most of the children out there, they are so busy with their video games, playing indoor sports, and there are so many activities out there for them to keep their mind healthy by keeping their body healthy. And it was also important for me to bring a subject of underprivileged kids or the underdogs trying to play a game that they're never known to or they've never heard about rugby and compete against 5 different countries and go for the world competition.
Well, we heard you there talk about KISS, the Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences. That must have made a big impact on you from what you said.
Yes, in fact, when I went to look at the actual location where this took place, which was in Odisha, which is northeast part of India by Calcutta, and when I went to that location in the morning, we were invited before 7:30 a.m. They said that's our prayer time, so you come during that time, and then after that we'll sit down and do a meeting. So I went in early at 7:15 to see what it's all about. And they said we are going to have a prayer with all our kids. Every morning we'd say a prayer, and then we go to our classes. I said, okay, so there'll be a bunch of kids and we'll see it. Until I went to see the prayer room. It was actually not a room, but it was a big field, like a soccer field, and there were about 11,000 children saying prayers. It almost looked like a VFX of a big action film. I said, how can there be so many kids? And they were so polite, so well behaved and disciplined, from 5 years old to 15 years old, boys and girls. And that just brought nothing but tears in my eye. And I said, I have to tell the story.
The current champions, the Langa Lions of South Africa, take on the tournament new boys, the Jungle Cats of India.